Today's video, we're taking a look at the Gateway 3400.
We review old technology from games to old PCs, and don't forget the doors. Yeah, ancient electronics, we cover it all.
So today's computer we're going to look at here is this Gateway E-3400. I'm not 100% sure on the year of this thing came out. To be honest, I didn't really dig in too much on finding a year it came out, but judging by the components, I would say late 90s, maybe even early 2000s. But yeah, this is the guy we're going to look at today. Not too much to say about the front, actually. There was no CD drive in this thing when I got it, so this is just a generic CD drive that I put in it. So we got our two bays, and then two more of the smaller bays, 3.5-inch bays, and of course your standard 1.44 megabyte floppy drive. Power button, reset button, no power. I think this little symbol here lights up green, I think, and then we have LED activity light for hard drive activity. This light is actually green as well. Usually it's red for the hard drive activity, but it's green here. We have our tag for Windows 2000 and Windows 98 SE. There's a tag on the side, though, a service tag that specifies, it has the number you type in for Windows 98. So I do believe Windows 98 was the stock OS on this. When I received this, actually it had Linux Red Hat on it. I'm not very familiar with that operating system. Oh, he's checking it out. Hopefully it doesn't. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not too familiar with that operating system, but that's what they originally had on this thing. Currently it does have Windows 98. I tried to restore it as best I could to what would be more of an original kind of setup. We have a Celeron badge there, Intel Celeron. Not much else about the front of this thing. It's got a nice little, it's like an indent. It's got some like style here. And then we have, I don't know why they're so active right now. They're annoyed about something. And then we have, if you see here, a little button here. You press that in, and this case is a little bit weird. This whole side comes off. You have to depress that button and kind of like pull it, and like the top and the side come off. I think mine is broken because it doesn't actually close all the way. I guess I'll show you guys in a second. But yeah, that is the front of this machine. So yeah, nothing spectacular about this guy. It's kind of just your run-of-the-mill beige box from the late 90s-ish. But we'll take a closer look at it here. So looking at the back of this machine here, you might notice right away this does not look like a standard machine. There's a couple dead giveaways of what's actually in here, but my first thought looking at it is it kind of screams not necessarily server but workstation-y. It just looks different. First of all, we have this weird kind of thing right here. There should be a cover over that, but it's not. We'll talk about it in a minute. That's a bit of a giveaway on what is inside here, at least as far as motherboard goes. This is bizarre because this is a tower. These expansion slots should be actually the other way. That's kind of weird. We have your standard I/O on the side, but obviously it's in a different sort of setup than we're usually seeing. And then we have the power supply down here at the bottom of the case. Not a weird thing in 2022, but for the late 90s, having the power supply at the bottom of the case instead of the top wasn't super common. So right away we have some unusual things. Now all of these come down to the motherboard form factor, which we've actually seen on this channel before, but we haven't looked at it in a tower. We've only seen it in a desktop. So I guess we'll see it in a tower form today. But a couple things. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 expansion slots. Obviously we have like Ethernet, video, and sound card. I did add some things to this machine, not a lot, but I'll go over that. we open it up. The sound card I did add. This sound card wasn't installed when I first got this machine. But the video card and Ethernet card are how I received this machine. So looking over here, we have a printer port or a parallel port. This looks to be a video port. Looks like a VGA video port, but it has a little blocker over it. It's been blocked off. 2 standard serial. We have mouse and keyboard, PS2, 2 USB ports, and then we have some audio ports for the built-in audio. So let me open this guy up and let's take a look inside. And here it is with the side of the cover taken off here, and you might recognize it right away. This is an NLX motherboard. Now that stands for New Low Profile Extended Motherboard. It's kind of a motherboard type that was pushed a little bit in the late 90s. One of my IBMs we looked at earlier used this same sort of motherboard, although that was in a desktop case. This is a tower type case. It's just a little different, as in the expansion cards are all kind of on a riser, and you'll see the motherboard, it kind of attaches here to another motherboard. So this one has the IDE controller connector on it and some different connectors. And then you'd have the board here that has like your PCI and ISA expansion slots. This one has like a plastic sort of guide thing over it. I've never seen that before. And then usually if it does have AGP, it's like off to the side on this sort of main board. So the thing about these NLX boards in the AGP slot is it's a little bit different. So you probably want a NLX compatible video card, which actually are extremely common. Pretty much all of Diamond's card lineup from the time supported NLX, and that's just this. See how this little corner here is missing? That basically turns it into an NLX compatible card. You might even be able to install cards that don't have this little cutout here, but sometimes you can't, especially depending on what's there. But yeah, it's just that little cutout. And like I said, Diamond put out like all of their cards from the era, basically. If that isn't already missing, usually you can just punch it out. So yeah, you just let's install this guy. Okay, well, I can't because actually the bracket. So the most annoying part about these NLX boards is actually the bracket. I can't install it right now because the standard one is on, but I could take this off and I'd be able to install it. But it would be a little awkward, it would be loose, and this would be open here. You can get these brackets, but they're a little bit pricey for just kind of like a little sheet of metal here. I think there's one on eBay, someone sells it, but they're like $14, $15. That's kind of a lot of money for just like a little bracket. Like I said, you can take this regular bracket off and you can install it without the bracket, but like I said, it's a little bit awkward. Geez, in all my years, I don't think I've actually come across a card that already had the bracket on it for whatever reason. I don't know, the brackets are just a little bit hard to come by. Cards themselves, extremely common, but the little NLX AGP brackets, for whatever reason, not super common. Or, actually, you can find them, they're just slightly pricey for what they are, so just keep that in mind if you do want to put something here. So, yeah, it's a little bit unusual. It's not as uncommon as you'd think. I don't come across these motherboards too often, but some big OEMs did use them. Obviously, this is a Gateway. I've seen them in quite a few IBMs, so they were around, but I don't really think they caught on spectacularly well. Here's this motherboard. This is the MX842. So this is a Celeron / Pentium III type board. We have the two RAM sockets right here. I'm not 100% sure on the max capacity. Originally, when I picked this machine up, it only had a single stick of 64 megabytes. I buffed that up a little bit. These are dual sticks of 128 megabytes. So we've got 256 total there going. I did already remove the Celeron because it offended me, and I replaced it with an equivalent speed Pentium III. So originally what was in this guy was a 800 megahertz Celeron running on a 100 megahertz frontside bus. So I've replaced that with an 800 megahertz Pentium III running on a 133 megahertz frontside bus. So I'm going to remove these expansion cards in a moment so we can take a look at them. But yeah, there is integrated audio. I'm just not sure which chip is the audio. Obviously that's part of the chipset. So right here we have the chipset. I believe it's an 815. Yeah, it's an 815 chipset. I don't know what the sound chip is. More chipset. I don't see anything like, usually there'll be a little crystal chip. It might be this. I don't know. I don't know for sure what the sound chip is on here. If it's if any of these is a specific sound chip. Right over here we have this bay. Right now we have one hard drive installed, 40 gigabytes, and then room for 2 more. And then here's the power supply. This is all very kind of a screwless case if you want to get these things out. I'm not going to disassemble it. It uses these little things instead of screws. So yeah, we've got like a lot of the connectors over here. So this one's for the hard drive, but this one over here is for whatever you put up here, which is probably going to be CD drives. And there's the floppy power connector. This is for the sound that connects to your CD-ROM drive, but that was if you're using the the built-in audio. Obviously that should be connected to the sound card here, since I do have a sound card, but it's too short and I don't feel like you know, unstringing it or anything like that. So yeah, this feels like a quick look. It kind of is. This is a little bit impromptu. So I guess I'll pull those cards and we'll take a look at them. So the expansion cards do not use screws. They use these little things that you, I think, pull up. Now this one's broke. I think that's the one for the sound card. That's going to be difficult. Let me try, how do you do this? Maybe it's the inside. Okay, let me try. This is for the sound card. Okay. And then they kind of go up and then the card comes out. Okay. So that's how you do it. Let me try that again here. Oh boy, how did I? There we go. It's hard to do it with one hand. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't use screws. It uses these little things, which obviously are plastic, and they can be a little bit brittle since this one here is already broke. Here's a look at the board with the expansion cards removed. Like I said, it's got this nice little plastic guide thing attached there. You can see there with the motherboard attaches to this other board. I don't know if this would be considered a daughter board. I guess it would be. I think maybe that little tiny guy there is the sound chip. Maybe. I'm not really sure. CMOS battery, little piezo speaker. But yeah, okay. So let's take a look at the 3 cards that were in there. So the first card we're going to look at very briefly here was the Ethernet card. This is kind of a standard 3-COM card. I've seen many of these types of cards. I don't really use them in these machines for my personal use, but I'm just kind of showing it here in the name of completeness. But this card did come with this machine when I picked it up. So I think let's look at the sound card. So here is the sound card, and I actually added this card just because I really didn't want to be bothered to hunt down whatever audio drivers the built-in audio used on this thing. So to save myself a little bit of hassle, I just had this thing laying around and I installed it. It's really nothing special. I'm not even sure exactly who the maker is. It's cheapo card CMB. It's a CM1873 8 PCI SX. I guess it's like a 6-channel card. It's got a nice little joystick / MIDI port thing right here. Kind of weird looking. It looks very budgety. It looks very cut down. I think it's okay. It does its job for basic stuff. I think it's a little bit better than the built-in audio. I believe this card does do EAX. I don't know how well it does EAX, but I think this is a fairly common sound chip. But I haven't really played around with this card much, so I really have no business commenting on it or its abilities. I just kind of installed it, and it plays the basic Windows sounds, and I haven't really messed with it much more than that, so I really can't comment too much on it. But there it is. So finally, let's probably look at the most interesting card here, and that will be the video card. So let's talk about this card here. This is the ATI Rage XL. So this is the Rage line of cards, was the predecessor of the Rage 128 cards. My personal experience with these cards is not that great, but then again, I do not have a lot of experience with these later Rage cards like the Rage Pro and the Rage Pro Turbo and the Rage XL. Most of my experience with these Rage cards are with the much earlier Rage revisions of this chip and Rage cards, probably like earlier drivers as well, and I can't say it was a great experience with those earlier Rage cards. Alright, so let's talk about this card, the Rage XL. Mine says it's from 2000. I believe this chip, though, came out in 98, maybe? I might be off on that a little bit. But according to various sources, this chip lived on for a long time in OEM machines and a lot of like server builds. It's just a general use sort of video card. Now, that being said, about it being kind of a general use OEM servery card, it is more or less the ultimate version of ATI's Rage chip. It is clocked the fastest of all the Rage chips, and it is the most capable as far as features go. Unfortunately, there is quite a downside of this card, being as far as I know, it doesn't support any of the games that use ATI's proprietary SIF API for certain games. There's not a ton of games that support it. I've watched some videos, and I've had some personal experience on SIF games as well. So there's actually not a lot of games, so you're not necessarily missing out a lot there, but technically this would be the ultimate card to play those games on, but unfortunately it seems like it's more of a driver issue why this card will not support those old SIF proprietary API games. It doesn't seem to be like an issue with the chip so much as drivers, that this card just won't accept older drivers. It seems like the games that do support SIF, they're really picky about driver and driver versions. There's actually whole web pages that show the different Rage cards and what drivers work and don't work with them. So I don't know if there's ever going to be a hack that comes out or anything like that, like hack drivers. But I guess technically, if you could get the drivers to work, this would probably be, as far as speed and features go, this would be the ultimate ATI SIF card. Now, in my personal experience, I haven't had I don't have a lot of fond memories of these ATI Rage cards, but then again, most of my experiences with the older, very early Rage cards, probably with not very great drivers, like early drivers. And it's just the early Rage cards I don't think were that great. From what I've been reading, what I've been watching, the later Rage cards are actually pretty decent. So keep in mind the main point of this video isn't really about this card, but it is a main element of the gateway, and obviously it's going to affect its performance. So I'm just going to reinstall all these cards. We'll play a couple games on this machine just to put it through its paces, and then we'll wrap this one up. Alright, let's take a quick look here at the BIOS here. You can see we got the 800 megahertz Pentium IV running at 133 megahertz front side bus, 256 megabytes of RAM. This BIOS is pretty adequate for an OEM machine. Again, you don't get a lot of options for tweaking, overclocking and stuff like that. That's pretty typical in an OEM machine, but it's adequate for your basic stuff. I've seen worse BIOSes. Here's our display properties. You can see we have the ATI drivers set up here. Pretty standard options. We're using drivers 4.12.2647. Pretty basic adjustment features and stuff here for the drivers. Okay, going into DOS, there's a quick look at SpeedSys. You can see it detects the ATI Rage XL. There's all the stats right there. So let's get into some games here. Quick look at just a couple DOS games, specifically Quake. So let's see how Quake runs in DOS. Now, since the Rage XL does use the same core as the Mach 64, or at least something very similar, you'll still get problems with certain DOS games with scrolling, like we see here with Commander Keen, same way you would with a Mach 64 or Mach 32 card. And you can see that here. It looks okay right now, but as I move around, you can see that weird like jittering and stuttering. That's a common problem with certain scrolling games and the ATI cards. Although I did find that, as far as I can see, this issue can actually be repaired if you go into the options menu with this game. There's like boxes you can tick, and I believe one is like SVGA fix, and I believe there's a box specifically for the scrolling issue. I clicked both of those, and it seems to have fixed the issue for me. So now we're looking at Windows, and we're looking at Final Reality Benchmark. You can see 3D graphics options, everything there is kind of checked in there. At this point, I was kind of getting impressed with this card just because my expectations were extremely low. Like I said, I didn't have a great experience with the earlier Rage cards, and I was just kind of expecting more of the same from this one. Even though I've watched some videos on it, and it got, fairly decent. I believe, in actuality, this card, when it came out, the only thing faster was the Riva 128, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. But yeah, it ran Final Reality pretty well. I mean, the mech section and the section where this little spacecraft's flying through the city, it all looked fine. So it looked really good. I didn't see anything missing or anything screwed up, and it was running pretty well. And of course, our mandatory 3D Mark 99. As you can see here with the first test, it's actually running fairly well. Again, I didn't have very high expectations for this card, but it did okay. Again, remember, there is a pretty powerful CPU comparatively in this machine. But let me see, off the top of my head, I think we got, what, 100 or 1,256 3D marks. I think that was the score we got for this test. But yeah, it ran through it. It didn't lock up or give me any like really weird texture glitches or anything like that. So it performed fairly well. And I wanted to run Forsaken. It actually has a special ATI Rage Pro mode you can pick here for the demo. So yeah, this is one of my newer favorite like kind of benchmark / demos to run. I wish I would have discovered it earlier. But yeah, let's take a look at the Forsaken benchmark / demo with our Rage XL. So not stellar results as far as FPS when we're dealing with Quake 3, but that's kind of to be expected with this game. It's a little bit later than when this card came out, but overall, I mean, it ran and it displayed okay. I didn't get like weird texture issues or just weird issues that I've had with certain other cards from the same time period of this Rage XL. So I mean, for its age, it performed pretty well with this game. So yeah, that's about all we're gonna do looking at this machine in general. But yeah, I wasn't blown away by the Rage XL, but it certainly gave me a much better impression than the earlier iterations of the Rage chip did.
You are tied for the lead.
And that, my friends, is a kind of brief look at the Gateway E-3400. Just kind of your standard beige box from the what I would think is probably like the late 90s, very early 2000s. I mean, I like the styling of the case. It's not bad. It tries to go a little bit different with the NLX motherboard, but other than just a different form factor, it doesn't do anything different. They could have just slapped a regular ATX motherboard in here and it would have functioned pretty much the same way. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice machine. It's certainly usable. You could certainly turn it into a nice Windows 98 machine. The Rage XL, form your own opinion on that. If you want to learn more about that card, I do encourage you to watch Phil's video on it. Apparently they're decent for DOS, and you can actually mod them to work in old, like, 46 PCI boards. They don't support 5-volt PCI, but there's a video on doing a mod that allows them to. But so yeah, I grabbed this thing, I picked this guy up not long ago. It's been sitting around. I just wanted to do a video on it to show you guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Guys, hey, come on. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you had this machine, please let us know in the comments. Tell me about your experience with the Gateway 3400. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.